Hello and welcome to the Savage Stream, the weekly live stream where we talk all things Star Trek. And today I'm going to be reviewing Star Trek Starfleet Academy Season 1, Episode 1, Kids These Days. So I am so excited to get into the story and get into the plot and the characters and all of that. But before I do that, I want to let you know that there are major spoilers ahead. So if you have not yet seen the episode, please pause this live stream, go watch the episode, and then come back and watch the live stream. Or if you're the kind of person who's like, I could care less about spoilers, then feel free. Come on along. Join us for the ride because I'm going to be telling you all the things and it will completely be ruined for you. Secondly, I want to say hello to everybody who's joined me live and hello to everyone who's watching on the replay. If you are on the replay, timestamps will be below eventually, and you'll be able to jump ahead at any point. So before I talk about this actual episode, I want to talk about how I was feeling about this episode. And I'd love to hear what you thought as well, like your thoughts. So when this was originally announced that there was going to be Starfleet Academy, I was pretty neutral about it. It was announced around the same time that the Section 31 series was announced. And I was so excited for that, like beyond, like I can't even tell you. I was like, oh my gosh, we're finally going to find out about what Section 31 gets up to, all of the shenanigans. I wasn't sure if it was going to be kind of like a back in time prequel kind of thing, like the beginning of Section 31 and how it evolved, or if it was going to be like modern. What does that even mean? If it was going to be future Section 31 and all the things that they do. But I like could not wait. Then when I found out Section 31 was going to be a movie instead, I was bummed because I was like, man, I really love to see, to really go on a journey with these characters and really be able to spend time and, see all the threads being pulled and all the games being played. But you know what? A movie will be great. It's Michelle Yeoh. Can't complain. Then I saw the movie. And to say I was disappointed is an understatement. So then when Academy came around and it was still going to be a show, now I went from neutral to negative. I was just like, I don't know. I was so disappointed by what Section 31 was. And by the way, I still want a Section 31 show, that I was very nervous about watching the show. Also, when the trailer came out, I was like, what in the world? It was so bubbly and happy, and it was just like youngsters falling in love, and hence the whole thing that people say about this show being like 90210 in space. That is exactly my thoughts when I saw it. Now, don't get me wrong, I like 90210. I enjoyed that show, but I enjoyed that show when I was like a tween. So I was nervous, very nervous that this was going to be something very angsty and very, I don't know, just like lots of drama about people hooking up with people, but just something that I'm kind of like past being super excited about. However, I thought, so that was my first thinking. And then I thought, well, let's be fair. The first episode of TNG was weird. It was weird. Like when I watched it as a kid, I was like, woo, magic, magic and science and space travel and a giant space jelly. It was so exciting. But as an adult going back to that first episode, I'm like, how did this get greenlit? How did we get a whole season 1? And almost the entire thing of season 1 was pretty bumpy. So I thought to myself, well, this can't be worse than that. That's for sure. But also I thought, how many times have I been wrong? I was the first one to be like, Lower Decks is going to be so stupid, blah, blah, blah. And I'm obsessed with Lower Decks. It's probably my favorite of all the new Treks. It's such a love letter to fans. And I was talking so much trash about Strange New Worlds, not really talking trash about it, but I was so disappointed by Picard that I was like, I'm never going to watch Strange New Worlds. And then I did, and I loved it. So I was like, you know what? I keep having to eat my words. So let me just go in with the open mind and watch this show. Let me tell you, I freaking loved the first episode of Starfleet Academy. I loved it. Shocked myself. I loved this episode. And I think the reason why I was shocked is I think the episode was good, like by itself, but my expectations from Section 31 and Picard were like super low. So the fact that there was this gap made me feel like it was incredible, like the best thing that's ever happened in the world of Trek or something. I was so pleasantly surprised by how great it was. While it may go down a road of being angsty eventually, because love stories is a thing, and that's a thing in all of shows that make it really like juicy. I'm really glad that they didn't start that way, because that was another reason I didn't want to watch Prodigy, because it was like for little kids. And then I was resisting it for so long, and people were like, you gotta watch it. And the first season was okay, but it did get really angsty, which makes me anxious. But then season 2 kind of matured, and I was like all about it. Let's go. And then it was canceled. So anyways, okay, that's my preamble. But this episode was so good. I'm now feeling really confident about the show. This was an excellent pilot. So honestly, even if the show goes a little bit down from this, as far as pilots go, well done. Like this, it did what it needed to do. But I do think the show is going to just get better and better. And I have so many things to just talk about. And I want to tear down the episode and go through the different plot points and go through the different characters, which is why I said spoilers will be a coming. So on that note, let me add this. For anyone joining, spoilers will be coming soon. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. Dustin says, I've learned from DS9 and Enterprise, not to mention TNG, that you shouldn't judge a Trek on its first episode, like at all. I totally agree. Nadia says, I would love to see a show that takes place maybe just after Voyager or within 50 to 100 years of it, just to get back on our own familiar time frame, you know? Yeah, because we did do a big time jump. Also, I want to shout out to PS2 Chipper, who has gifted 20 memberships to the channel. So if you're not yet a member, now's the time. Yeah, Wingray says, I was really mid to meh for this. Very happily surprised. Same. And thank you for the birthday wishes. Okay, so now let's get into the plot. The big idea is that there was this kid named Caleb who was separated from his mother and kind of grew up in a really rough life. And now he's back trying to find his mother. Okay, that's like the big idea, the broad strokes. But I'm going to talk about the plot and break it down into all 3 acts, which is technically like 4 acts. But I'm going to break it down and then tell you my thoughts along the way. And I'd love to hear yours. It is. Thank you so much. Okay. So in the beginning, it starts with a 6-year-old Caleb and his mom in some kind of prison. And we don't know it's a prison. It just looks like some random room. And they're looking up at the sky. And she's like, someday we'll have a ship. Someday we'll go to Earth. It's going to be amazing. And then suddenly we see her be pulled out by guards maybe, and kind of put in front of this, what do you call those little stands you stand in front of during court? She had to stand in front of one of those things. So you realize it's some kind of trial. It's her and then this other dude named Braca. And you have Captain Ake, who's just like, you know, who's saying, you know why you're in trouble for XYZ reasons. And basically Braca was like, this woman was starving. She didn't have any food. So we had to raid this Federation ship to get food to feed her and her child, as if he's just some like glorious, benevolent friend, right? Just a Robin Hood, you know, he's like stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. However, this woman, the mom, whose name I'm totally blanking on. So if you remember the mom's name, let me know in the chat. But the mom had no idea he was a pirate. She just was like, hey, I'm hungry and my kid's hungry and we need some food. And he was like, got you. I know exactly how to get that food, right? So he went and attacked this Federation vessel and he killed the crew and then stole their food and probably all their other supplies. So that changed the crime from like theft to theft and murder, which is like the maximum crime or whatever. So they sentenced both Braca and the mom to jail like forever. And the mom was just like, what? But you said you were going to work things out for me. You said you were going to help me. As she's being dragged away by the guards, she's like, you said you were going to help me. I don't understand. How are you putting me in prison forever? And she's like, sorry, that's the best I can do. But don't worry. We'll put your kid in a really good foster home or whatever. And the kid's just like, what's going on? Because he's 6, right? So he's like, why is my mom screaming? Why is she crying? Why are they dragging her away? And as the mom's being dragged away, she's like, don't trust them. Anisha. Okay. Yep. Did not remember that. She's like, don't trust them. Don't trust Starfleet. And so he's like, okay. So then he goes to some separate room where he's just kind of crying and traumatized by everything that just happened. So Captain Ake comes to him and is like, hey, we're going to send you to Bajor, which I would love to see Bajor now. Like I would love to see it in this timeline, but I'm sure it looks the same. Anyways, I'm so curious. So she's like, we're going to send you to Bajor where the people are super nice there. You'll be able to visit your mom like every week or whatever she said. And it'll be all good. Just trust me. So at this point, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to this mom? Because I know it can't be this simple. So I'm like, is she going to somehow die within the first 3 months being in prison? Is something going to happen to her kid? Is he going to get lost in Bajor or kidnapped by somebody in Bajor? Or like, what's going to happen? None of that happened. None of what I thought was going to happen happened. Basically, Caleb tricks Ake, gives her a hug, like, oh, thank you so much for helping me, and then steals her comm badge and uses that comm badge to escape. And she realizes it too late because he's like, oh, I left my teddy bear in the room. And she's like, oh, let me get it. And as she goes to get the teddy bear, she's like, wait a minute, my comm badge is gone. And then she runs back and like Caleb is gone. So you're like, oh, snap, what just happened? Especially since he's 6 and there's a big old windstorm outside. So you're like it's not a windstorm. It's like a sandstorm, but it's like the level of the Mummy. Okay. It's like sand that's just like whipping around, knocking the facility over. So you're kind of like, oh man, I don't think this kid's going to make it. Then it says fast forward 15 years and Caleb is alive and well, and he's been arrested for some additional crime, but it seems like he was arrested on purpose so he could break into the jail where his mom was being held so he could break her out. So there's this whole action scene that totally blew my mind. I was like, what? Like that had me. I was so engrossed in this part of the story. And all kinds of shenanigans happen and the ship almost crashes and whatever. But in the end, he's searching for his mom through the database as the ship is like crashing. And then it's like, that prisoner is not here. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, how could that prisoner not be here? Of course, the computer can't answer those questions. So he ends up getting caught. He ends up being arrested. And Ake, Captain Ake, now like switches over to her. Turns out she quit Starfleet after this incident because she felt like such a horrible person for separating this family. And she felt like Starfleet had lost its way, especially in light of the burn and all of the death and destruction that had happened from that. She just felt like, now we're not the people who I originally signed up to join. This is not what I signed up for. This is not the Starfleet that I trust and believe in and want to support. So she's like, I'm out. She quit. Then we see Admiral Vance, who is from Discovery. And he comes to her and he's like, hey, look, we want to restart the academy. And I want you to be the chancellor, which I guess is like the principal. I want you to be the chancellor of the academy. And she's just like, no, Starfleet sucks and I don't want anything to do with it. And he's like, exactly. We need a Starfleet that aligns with the values that we both believe in. And you can do that. You can raise up these new recruits to have the kind of values that Starfleet should have. So she's like, I'm still not sold. And then he's like, all right, we found Caleb. And she's like, what? All right, I'm in. So then Caleb goes to, Caleb is in prison. Ake goes to visit Caleb and is like, look, real sorry about that whole splitting up your family, putting your mom in prison thing. But just so you know, your mom escaped 5 years ago. And if you want to find her, you will join me, come to the academy, and we can look for her together because I want to make up for that mistake. I should have never done that. I should have never separated you. I was totally wrong. I can't fix it, but maybe we can find her. And so Caleb is like, all right, fine, deal, bet, let's go. So that's kind of the end of the first act. And I was having a lot of thoughts at this point. First of all, this is my first shock. Instead of me being like, oh my gosh, it's 90210 in space, which is what I thought I would be doing at this point, I was like, I was so in. I was like, his mom disappeared 5 years ago, but where is she? What happened to her? Is she okay? You know, what's he been doing? How in the world did he survive in this sandstorm? How is he still alive? I had so many questions, which none of those were answered. But I'm guessing they will be. I'm assuming there's going to be some kind of flashback scenarios back to Caleb's troubled past that they can pull from anytime they want because there's 15 years of material there. So they can always pull back and be like, oh yeah, that's somebody I met when I was 10. That's somebody I met, you know, in the mines. That's somebody I met doing crimes with the Orions or whatever, which will be interesting. I also was very interested in this dynamic between Ake and Caleb because it is kind of like a mother-son dynamic at this point, like a mentor-mentee, kind of like Janeway and Seven of Nine or Janeway and Crew or like Picard and Crew. They kind of have that like motherly thing going, but this feels special and not contrived, right? So it's kind of contrasting it to Picard's connection with Wesley. Picard was Jack Crusher's best friend and also in love with Beverly since forever. And when Jack Crusher died, Picard was like still in love with Beverly, but didn't want to hook up with her because felt like it was betraying his best friend. But also Wesley's around, kicking around. And so he grows up kind of feeling like Picard's his dad, also kind of feeling like Picard killed his dad. Lots of confused feelings, but Picard sucks with kids and doesn't really care for Wesley too much until maybe the last episode when he goes off to the academy. Like whatever, what was that, season 2 or whatever? So it's like a father-son thing, but a little weird, estranged, uncomfortable. And what I liked about this was that this made sense. It didn't feel contrived. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like I have a crush on your mom, so I guess I have to be nice to you. It felt like I stole your mom and I feel horrible about that. And I want to fix that. And then we find out later on that her son died in the burn. So she's also got this kind of like, not a sun-shaped hole, but she has this feeling of, and she says to him, if I had it to do over, here's what I would have done differently for my son. I would have listened more, not told him what to do, not boss him around, just listen to what he had to say. So I'm here to help you and I'm here to listen. And Caleb was just like, I'm not your son. And she's like, I'm well aware, but I'm just learning I'm trying to learn from my mistakes. Caleb, on the other hand, obviously needs a mom. He hasn't had any kind of parental figures that we know of for the last 15 years. But who knows? Maybe he was in some kind of Guardians of the Galaxy situation. He's got a whole crew that's his family out there. We don't know yet. But as far as we know, he hasn't had at least his mom in his life for the last 15 years. So now he's got this maternal mentor figure, and they both are, I don't know, it's like there's sharp edges between them, but there's also this kind of mutual tentative trust. I find that really interesting. Okay, I'm going to read the chat, and then we're going to break down the next act. Let's see. Let me scroll up. How much did I miss? Thank you for the birthday wishes. Thank you. Thank you. DJ Magic says, I give the episode 1 4.9 out of 5. So that's a little bit less than halfway. That is interesting. Let me know why. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So Nadia says, I can't blame you. Section 31 was weird in so many ways. It really was. And just such a missed opportunity. But I know things probably happened on the back end that made it not as great as it could have been. Let's see. Okay, Paul Giamatti is a fantastic actor. That being said, I have a hard time seeing him as a Klingon, even partly. Would have been cool if he was Paklid, Torellian mix or something. Is he supposed to be a Klingon? I don't think that's what he is it? Isn't it something else? But a Paklid? That's interesting. I think I feel like I've had my fill of Paklids from Lower Decks and kind of never want to see a Paklid again. DJ Magic says it was basically a monsoon storm. Exactly. Dustin says, I'm slightly disappointed she didn't keep the bear for 15 years and present it back to Caleb. What happened to that bear, Dustin? Where'd the bear go? That better be a deleted scene on the physical release. That's so funny. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I also was kind of thinking what happened to the bear. Maybe it will come back, though. Like, we don't know. Maybe she did keep it somewhere as a memory, as a memento of what happened that day. I don't know. But it would have been nice to bring it back in this episode because I don't think we're going to remember if they bring it back. I guess they could just do a flashback and just tell us. I agree, Nadia. Exactly. Picard was just like, I'm going to miss saying, shut up, Wesley. Whatever. I'm here to tell my son what to do all the time until the end of time. Wahahaha. So Nadia as a mom is like, bump that. Okay. This is what I do. I tell him exactly what to do. Stila says absolutely loved the first episode. See what else not seeing some of that. Oh, are you guys not seeing all the chats? I don't know why. I don't know. Oh, actually I do know why. Because I'm streaming this on YouTube in 2 places. That's why you might not see everything. DJ Magic says, clearly there was no Vulcan around when Caleb bounces. A simple tricorder scan would have found that kid real quick. Very true. They could have said something like, we can't find him in the storm because you know how they always do ion storm and that's why the shields don't work? Ion storm, shields don't work. They could have done something like that for why they couldn't find Caleb, right? They could have been like, oh, sandstorm, all of our scanners are down and we can't find him. I have no problem with the fact that they didn't scan for him. More, I'm like, how on earth did he survive the sandstorm, right? Like that was like blowing buildings over. How did he survive that? But I kind of don't want to know if it's stupid. You know what I mean? Like just leave it a mystery. Just be like, he's just such a clever kid. I'm fine with that. Okay, so Braca is a Klingerite, half Klingon, half Tellarite. Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you, Sayla. You know me so well. That's exactly what I want. A Klingerite. Never mind, Dustin got it. Yep. Okay. DJ Magic says, and then Mom knew he was a pirate. If she didn't, why would she make sure that Caleb remembered the pirate code to send the messages? Well, I don't know if that was the pirate code. I think she said that was their secret code just between them. And I think somehow Braca got that code from the mom. That's what I think it was. It was their secret channel and Braca somehow got that information out either through manipulation or through, torture or through seduction or through friendship or who knows what. But I think that's what it was. They look for things that make them go. I'm missing half the chats. That's okay. I'm streaming it in 2 places. That's why. Yep, that's why. You're not shadow banned. Okay, Act 2 of this. So next, now we're at Starfleet Academy and we see this set for the first time, and it is glorious. Like, it almost made me want to go to the academy. Although, let's be real, some crazy stuff happens in Starfleet, so I'm good. Like, I'd be a civilian. But the academy itself is beautiful. Turns out it's this ship, this gigantic ship with wings, with freaking wings, which I kind of love because you don't have to be aerodynamic in space because it's space. So there's no air pressure against you. You can have any crazy shape and it'll fly just as well. So I love that they have these like totally unnecessary. It's almost like when Tom Paris built the Delta Flyer, how he wanted to do like a racing stripe on the side with like fire. And Tuvok was like, why? And he was like, because it'll make people think it's really fast. And Tuvok was like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's kind of like that. The ship has big unnecessary wings, but I'm here for it. Anyways, going through the ship, this is kind of our fun and games section where we get what was promised. What is the experience of being in the academy? So we see this beautiful vista and these gorgeous lobbies, and we kind of get to meet the rest of the crew, the rest of the students, the rest of the bridge crew, the cadet master, who is also the first officer, because it's a ship, but it's also a school. And Ake tells Caleb, the school is a ship, but the ship itself is going to go to Earth and it's going to land in San Francisco. But because it's a ship, we can also take off and do missions. Why is it a ship? I don't know, but it's a ship too. So we can like do stuff with the ship. Okay, fine. I'm not even complaining about that. So Caleb is like, okay, that's interesting. One bit of technology that's very cool is Caleb walks through this like, almost like a force field, and it like instantly cuts his hair and trims everything and puts on a uniform, and he's just like polished the minute he walks through. And I thought that was like, that is exactly how the technology would work. That's exactly what it should do. Like, it just was such a good use of technology. You know, sometimes in Star Trek, we'll have like the heat shield that protects you from the star's corona. And it's so great in this one episode when you need to hide in the star's corona from the Borg. And then the next episode, they're like, we don't have a heat shield, we'll burn up. And you're like, but we had one last week. What happened to that? You know, a lot of times there's this technology where you're like, I guess we didn't need it. We only needed it for that episode. I guess we don't need it again. But this was like, this makes sense in this world. It makes sense to have this, even if we never see it again. It just was very logical and well thought out, I felt like. Okay, let's see. I'm just checking my notes. Okay, while we're going through the fun and games and meeting the other crew members, which I'll talk about in a second, I'll talk about the characters and kind of my thoughts on them. At one point, Caleb sneaks away to send his mom a message on their secret channel. And he's just like, Mom, are you getting these? I just found out you've been, out of the prison for 5 years, but you haven't tried to find, he doesn't say all this. This is subtext. He's like, you've been out for 5 years and you haven't tried to find me? Like, what the heck? Like, what's going on? How could that be? How could it possibly be true that my mom is not trying to find me as hard as I'm trying to find her? Right? But what he says is like, Mom, are you out there? Are you even getting these messages? Can you hear me? And while he's doing this, one of the other cadets shows up and catches him. And so he turns off the message. Well, unfortunately, that message was co-opted by Braca. So he finds that message and he lays in wait and he ambushes the ship on its way back to Earth. Bum, bum, bum. So he starts by just, he sends out some kind of fake signals or something. And when the ship stops, he like comes out of the dust and just blasts the crap out of the ship. And Ake's like, shields, hurry. And it's just like, boom, boom, boom. Everything's exploding. People are flying around. Casualties all over the place. The doctor, the EMH from Voyager, is here on the ship. And we love that. I love the doctor. So he's trying to take casualties like through the hallways and, trying to help them through and stuff. And the first officer, who is part Jem'Hadar, part Klingon. Again, this is how we got a female Jem'Hadar. I'm just so thrilled that they had that idea. It's just so fun to me. Who actually bleeds Ketracel White? Come on now. Come on. Like, I love it. Anyways, she gets mortally wounded. So now we've got people blowing up and flying all over the ship and all kinds of drama. After all these holes are punched in the ship, Braca hits the ship with programmable matter. So it covers the entire ship and starts draining the power from all the systems. So now the ship, which is called the Athena, is dead in the water. Boom. Like the easiest takedown in the history of takedowns. And Ake's just like, oh crap. Like, I think the whole fight took about 5 minutes. They had no chance to defend themselves. I don't think they got a chance to put the shields up. And that's it. Like they're done. They're toast. And so now they're trying to figure out like what to do. The bridge crew's trying to figure it out. And then Caleb and company are also trying to figure out and trying to keep their first officer from bleeding to death. So they come up with a plan. Hold on. Okay, that's act part 2. So let me give some thoughts about this so far. Okay, so again, at this part of the episode, I'm like so in. I was not expecting a bunch of explosions and I wasn't expecting so much action. I was expecting a lot more drama and a lot less action. And I freaking love action. So I was here for it. I was just like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I didn't know anybody was going to actually get hurt, like anybody who was main cast members. But I knew there was going to be some kind of, they have to get out of this situation and how are they going to get out? And so I was just curious to see how they were going to solve this particular problem. I really liked that Lieutenant Thawk bled Ketracel White. I loved the callback to that. And also the fact that was the whole thing, is that the Jem'Hadar couldn't survive without their injection of it. I don't need to know the biology of how mating a Jem'Hadar with a Klingon would produce such a thing, but I just like that it felt like an Easter egg, and it felt like it explained why she's female, right? Because she's part Klingon, and then also why she doesn't need the Ketracel White tube into her neck, because it's just flowing through her veins. And I don't know, it's just like a fun thing that only Star Trek or sci-fi can do, right? Just mixing together science in a way that's just magic. So I think that's really interesting. Okay, I'm going to check the chat, and then I'm going to break down Act 2, Part 2, which is when they come up with the plan. So, okay, let me check. Ketracel White, yum, yum. Let me check. Let me check the chat. Okay. Yes, DJ Magic says we will hopefully have these questions answered later in the season. Yes, I do have some questions at the end that I'm curious about, that I wonder if they will be answered in the end of the season. One of those is definitely this one from Wyngrace. By the way, I do not think Ake's son is dead. I agree. And I feel like, because that's just such a good point of drama. I don't know. She died. He died during the burn. I don't know how long ago the burn was from this point in time when they're opening the academy. So, but they're Lanthanites and they live like forever and ever. So he might be alive. What is he doing? Where has he been? Yes. Welcome. Okay. Sela says, love the San Francisco song. The Trek reviewer says, if you notice, Lieutenant Yar, who is credited as Rebecca Quinn, aka WWE superstar Becky Lynch, is the only bridge officer that does a stunt in episode 1. Clinarite sounds more like an ore than a race. The Klingon Clinarite. Yes, I actually didn't notice who did stunts. So I'm going to take your word for it. I was just like, explosions! I love explosions. Yeah, seriously. I agree with you, Dustin. Yes, life is hard. Do what's best for you and your family. Yes. That's just a good message for all time. Nadia says, okay, did anyone else think that Ake took too long to raise shields? I was yelling at my screen like, shields, raise the flipping shields. 100%. Like, I don't think she got to raise the shields, because she was just like, what's going on? There's a ship. They're powering up weapons. Well, that's so strange. Uh-oh, something's flying towards us. Now that it's flying towards us, shields. And it's like the scene where people run upstairs instead of out the back door. And you're just like, ugh. And then when the explosion started, you're just like, man, like, yeah, it's in Wyngrace's, Wyngrace in her defense says, to be fair, she hasn't captained in 15 years. So I guess it takes 15 years to forget that you need to raise shields when there's something flying towards your ship that's going to explode. Sela said, I thought the Jem'Hadar didn't have sex. They did not have sex to reproduce. They did not need to. They don't have to have sex. They did not need to eat. But does that mean they couldn't? Maybe they're fully functional like Data. Apparently they are. Or it could have been some genetic lab experiment. I don't know. But I think they're implying that the Jem'Hadar chose not to have sex, but could if they wanted to. Just like they didn't have to eat, but I guess they could if they wanted to. They had mouths. And I don't know if they're gonna explain that, Sela. My thinking is probably not, but who knows? Dustin says, given that I don't think we're going to have a lot of action in classroom settings, I'm glad they leaned into action a bit more than some other first episodes. I completely agree, because we do have to have that, right? We have to have like them learning things. I don't know if it needs to be in a classroom. I feel like they could learn things, out on away missions, or learn things, have more practical knowledge skills. I'm thinking more like kind of like Harry Potter, right? Where the classes are like the potions class, you make potions, or herbology, you actually pull up ugly plants from like it's more hands-on. So I'm hoping all the teaching is more like that and less like chalkboard and talking, like real teaching. So that way it can be more visual at the very least. Nadia says, OMG, Laura Thought, can we just talk about her for a minute? I flipping loved her. Best character so far. Yeah, I don't know. She's the grumpy character, right? She's the obligatory grump that we need to have in every Star Trek show. So part of me was like, oh, she seems kind of bummed. Like she's just kind of like frustrated or grumpy or whatever. But I think she's going to be a fun character. She is definitely a balance to, which we'll talk about in a second, to Jaden, who is the Klingon, who's like the cadet, who's very timid and shy. And she's very much like a Klingon warrior who just looks like a Jim Hadar, But yeah, they definitely gave her a very strong personality, which I appreciate. Okay, so PS2 Chipper says, I will wait till the season is over, and if the season is good, I will give it a watch. Okay, well, just know that I'm spoiling this entire episode for you, so, be warned. Okay, it was 120 years since the burn. So then where has the son been for 120 years? I feel like he could have made his way home. I guess depending on how far away he is, but I don't know. Dustin says, I think Reno's best so far. Feels like she fits in better here than Disco even. And I have not yet seen the second episode, by the way. So I'm assuming Reno will show up there. I'm assuming Tilly's going to show up there. I wonder if we're going to get some cameos from the Discovery crew, like the other members of the Discovery crew at some point. Okay, I really like, yes. Okay, Sela, you read my mind. This, when she was reading a paper book, where'd she even get that? I was like, she must have gotten that from the library in the Badlands from Discovery, because where does she get a paper book from in this day and age? But that made me so happy. Dustin says, to be fair, they never said that Jim Hadar couldn't have sex, just that they have no females. They did say that they didn't have sex. Well, they didn't say that, but Quark asked the Jim Hadar when they were occupying Deep Space Nine. He was like, hey, do you guys have sex? Do you guys eat food? And they were just like, we have no need of those things. And remember, Quark was all complaining about it. He was like, well, what are they going to do in Quark's bar if they're not going to use the holosuites and they're not going to eat and they're not going to drink? What's the point of Jim Hadar? Like, they are not good customers. So, but it didn't say they couldn't, right? Jim Hadar reproduction has got to be lethal. That's funny. More than that, though, in 900 years, I'd be surprised if a genetically engineered race wasn't engineered further. 100%. Because why not? Exactly. I subscribe to Laura being a lab experiment theory. I guess we'll find out. Yes, Sam was fun. We're going to talk about the characters in just a minute. But Sam, obsessed. Totally obsessed. So let's see. My guess is the son is a baddie now. So do you think the son is friends with Braca? That is interesting. So Chaotic Truth says, Starfleet Academy is a sleeper. This show will be renewed for multiple seasons. I hope so. I would love to see what this show looks like in season 7. Do you remember how good? Well, I was going to say how good TNG got by season 7. Do you remember how good TNG got in season 4? Like season 3 and 4, and how it was like picking up and you were like, oh my gosh. And it was like hit after hit after hit. I would love to see this show like reach that, but it does take time to get that rhythm. So I definitely hope it gets the time it needs. Okay. Oh, right. That's why I put that. Thanks, PS2 Chipper. No. It's okay if you spoiled episode 2. I just haven't seen it yet. So like, yeah. See, but we don't know this. We don't know they don't have sexual organs. We know they don't need sex to reproduce. That is not the same thing. Just like Data has sexual organs and does not reproduce, but he has them and uses them on occasion, but he has them. So, and especially this being Star Trek, I'm feeling like, yeah, that might be a thing. Chaotic Truth, and then we'll go to the next act. Chaotic Truth says, Sam's attempts at greetings and the missed handshake was a nod to Riker introducing himself to singing Data and TNG. Oh, I missed that. Was there a missed handshake? I remember the whistling, and I remember Data being like, how do you humans do that? But I don't remember the handshake. I have the same question. And why aren't there more? Because Sam is walking around. So what's going on? What is going on? Data used them twice that we know of. Twice that he even said. Yeah, good question. Good question. Let's answer that in the chat. All right, so next, now we're in Act 2, Part 2. Okay, so Caleb has a plan to disrupt the programmable matter because Caleb, I forgot this part, is also a genius, right? Which is how he was able to survive for the last 15 years, how he knew to steal the comm badge and survive in the mummy level sandstorm outside of the station, prison, whatever that was. So he's like, I know exactly how to disrupt them. I can find the same harmonic level frequency that they're on and blah, 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 blah. And so then the rest of the team is like, okay, let's help. I'll do this part. I'll do that part. So they're already being a team, which is just, it's why I love TNG. It's why I love Voyager, is those moments when they're like options and then everybody kind of jumps in and they have their own specialty. Like, I love that. So they do that. Their plan is to disrupt the matter, and Caleb comes over to the bridge and tells Ake, I think I can do it. Here's the plan. And at first the other bridge crew are like, get off this channel, cadet. What are you doing? And then Ake's like, no, let him talk. I've seen this man in action before. Like, go, you do your plan. We're going to let you do your plan. We're going to clear the way. Now, at the same time, the bridge has their own plan. So Braca has showed up and been like, ha, 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 I'm here. And also said, by the way, because she's like, this is a mighty big coincidence. He's like, yeah, it's not a coincidence. I got this message, and plays it. And it's Caleb being like, Mom, are you getting these? Are you there? And everyone looks over at Caleb and he's like, yep, that was me. And it's just like I feel like it's such a humiliating moment because he's such a mystery and such a like a bad guy, not bad and evil, but bad like a bad boy. And this showed him being really vulnerable and afraid and kind of young, for him to be like, Mommy, are you there? And I feel like that being broadcast to the whole crew is already humiliating enough, especially for a character like Caleb. But then to add salt to the wound, Braca's the one who found it. So like, how did he get the code? And then he's being like, isn't that so sad? And that's how I found you. And now I'm still in your warp core. So he's screwed everybody on this ship on day one. So it's just like insult to injury. And Caleb's like, uh-oh. And then the other guy, who we're going to talk about in a second, Darum, who's his like rival as far as episode 1 goes, is just like, you did this, you sent him here, and tries to fight. And then Genesis, who's one of the other cadets, breaks them up and is just like, we don't have time for this. This is like a life or death situation. Fight later. We don't have time for this, right? So that gives us some good drama, but also it's like a really nice tie-in because later on, Braca says, it's such a shame, Caleb, what happened to your mom after we broke out of prison. So now you're like, oh my gosh, like what else is going on? Like, where is the mom? And why are you so tight with her? Like, it seemed like they were perfect strangers at the beginning. Like they barely knew each other long enough for Braca to be like, let me get you some food. But they were in prison together. Were they hanging out together? Like, what is going on? There's so many questions about this prison. I hope we have a flashback episode just of the prison situation. Just one. I don't want a lot of it, but I just want to see what was happening then. We could even do one of those flashbacks where it's like multiple scenes, where you can see kind of the passage of time. Anyways, okay. So Ake sets his plan in motion because Braca wants to steal the warp core. And he's like, I know you've all told Starfleet, like headquarters to come and find you and help you, but they're way out of range. Like they're not going to be here for 45 solid minutes at warp 9.9 to avoid the lizard babies. So we can do anything we want in that amount of time, but we're going to leave you alone. Pinky promise. All you have to do is give us your warp core and we will let you go. So Ake's like, okay, deal. It takes 10 minutes for us to unhook it or whatever. And then you can send your people down and they can take the warp core. And Braca's like, okay, deal. So they come up with this plan to set a training drill in the, in engineering or wherever they keep the warp core. Main engineering of the ship is what I would assume, to where it looks like the warp core is about to explode. And so that convinces Braca and his crew to hurry up and beam off the ship before it explodes. So this is, plan B. Plan A is Caleb trying to mess up all of this programmable matter and like destabilize it or whatever. And he's trying to do it all on his own and everyone's trying to help him. So we need somebody to do a spacewalk. That's where Darum comes in because it turns out he can do that. The type of creature he is, he's a brand new species we've never seen before. I think it's hold on, let me see what it is. I wrote it down. I did not write it down. What is his species? It's a Okay, somebody knows what it is. Somebody just dropped it in the chat. Whatever Darum is, the one who can walk outside in space. But anyways, he's like, I can walk out in space without a suit. What? That is some Borg level biology right there. Because the only other people we've seen walk outside in space, in the vacuum of space, and not be harmed are Borg drones in the movie First Contact. They were walking around like it was like nothing going on. But usually you need a spacesuit, you need some pressurized situation going on, you need some oxygen, you need some protection from the coldness of space, the vacuum of space. Otherwise your insides would boil and your skin would burn and you would freeze to death in seconds. So he can just like walk out there and he's like, yeah, I could do it for like 8 minutes. 8 minutes. That is wild. That is wild. So, yeah. So they're like, okay, you go out and you like measure whatever he needs to measure, some measurement Caleb needs. And then on the other hand, Sam, who is a photonic, who is a holographic student, she's able to like figure out the algorithms really, really fast, like faster than Caleb can do it. And he's like, I can't believe somebody can do as fast as me with computer stuff. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Thok is still bleeding out on the corner. Like she's still bleeding out in sick bay. And they're trying to figure all this out. All of their plans work. Everything comes together. And the programmable matter is dissolved. And somehow Jaden, the Klingon cadet, is able to stop the bleeding and kind of suture the wounds for Lieutenant Thok. So she also doesn't die. And Sam kind of assists. Caleb's plan goes off without a hitch and all is well. But at that exact moment, suddenly Braca shows up holding a gun to Caleb's face, like head, and is just like, I knew you guys were lying to me. I knew you were trying to trick me. And so then they get into this epic battle. And I was like, what? I was also surprised by this. And as they're fighting, all the programmable matter disappears. And then Ake is like, fire. So that command went a lot faster than Shields, let me tell you, because Shields did not come up. When she said fire, they were like, boom, 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 and blew up the whole ship. Braca's ship and all his people are gone. So after they finish fighting, as he's fighting Caleb, he wins. And Caleb is like laying on the ground all mad, and he looks up and he sees through the view, like through the window, that his ship is blown up, and he's like, no. And then he runs to an escape pod, which is handily located about 5 feet to his left. And he hops in and hits the button and he escapes, while Caleb is like, no, 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 revenge. And also, where's my mom? And Braca's like, ha, 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 ha. But as he floats away, he kind of looks really like serious and really pissed. I love that. I love that, because it's like, even though he acts like this really unhinged, like crazy person, that moment shows us that this character has layers, that he actually has like plans, that he thinks through things, that he's got something cooking. And I like that. I like that this character is not one note. So far, all we've seen in this episode is this character is extremely one note, right? He's just like, I'm evil and also unhinged. But stuff like this is like, okay, hold on. There's some method to his madness. Like there's something else going on. There's layers. And I really hope that continues. They continue to build that, because I think that'll make a far more interesting villain than just like bad for bad's sake. That's fun to watch, but it's not as interesting. So I don't necessarily want to empathize or like him in any way, although that would make the character more interesting as well. But I want to see more layers to him. And I don't need to see like, he had a hard childhood and that's why he's a pirate. I don't need to see that. I need to see what's he doing now. Like, I would love to see that he's acting mad, but in reality, he's really clever and cunning, right? And that's just like a shell or a show that he does to throw people off. I think that'd be fun. I think that'd be interesting, but I guess we'll see. Keonian. Thank you, DJ Magix. I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't see it. Okay, I'm going to check the chat, and then we're going to talk about the very end of the episode, and then I want to talk about the crew, and then I want to talk about some predictions. So we're just going tonight. Scrolling up. Is he species 8472? Okay, how do we know that Jim Hadar don't have sexual organs? How do we know that? How do we know that? I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just curious, because I don't remember anyone saying that exact thing in an episode. So yeah, just let me know. So Chaotic Truth says, I was referring to Sam's Miss Handshake. She not knowing greeting customs was great. She can grow and become more human, like Data. She can aspire to be more human. Yes. Okay. That's what you mean. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sam did not know how to shake hands. I thought this was a nod to Data because Data didn't know how to whistle. Yeah. In that first episode. Maybe it's a nod to Data. It's definitely a nod to the Doctor, but also, all of it's kind of a nod to Spock and that outsider character who's trying to understand humanity. So in TOS, it was Spock who was like, why are humans like this? In TNG, it was Data who was like, why are humans like this? In Voyager, it was the Doctor who was like, why are humans like this? And then later on, it was Seven of Nine who he got to teach and say, hey, this is why humans are like this. In Deep Space Nine, it was Odo who didn't want to be human, but humanoid, right? He wanted to be a solid. So why are solids like this? I don't know if there's a character like that in Enterprise because I have not yet seen Enterprise, but there's this role of like the outsider looking in who's trying to understand humanity. And that's definitely Sam, who even says that in this episode, right? She's like, I want to understand biologicals. I want to understand organics. Like how do they function? So absolutely, it's a nod to, that's definitely a theme. It's definitely a trope of Trek that I love because I a lot of times feel like an outsider looking in at people who do weird things for weird reasons. And I think we can all relate to that at some point in life. And so I very much appreciate the character of Sam. DJ Magic says, asking why Sam knows how to do all this hacking stuff is like asking why Jack Sparrow knows how to pick a lock, or pickpocket something on a ship. Like he just was born that way. American Tale in Space. What does that mean? What is American, like talking about America? Wait, what? Can you clarify, Karen, instead of me guessing? Dustin says, it reminded me of when Drukmani outed Peanut Hamper as the one that sent the transmission to them. Yes, you're so right. It didn't remind me of that at all, but you're so right. It was that same idea, that same moment where someone is just like, oh, it was them all along. And then everyone looks and they're like, it was you. And they're like, ruh-roh. And there's like evidence because they like played the recording and they were like, yeah, see, she literally told us to come and get them. And you're like, oh my gosh, Peanut Hamper. And you're like, oh my gosh, Caleb. Exactly. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. DJ Magic says, leading even further into my prediction that he grew up with the pirates and that his mom knew all along and maybe possibly be the leader of the pirates. That would be a great arc to play. So, okay, so your prediction, DJ Magic's, is that Caleb grew up with the pirates. So when he escaped at 6, he joined the pirates, the ones that were left from the ones that he met in his brief time with Bracca's crew. And they all raced together. And his mom got out and became a pirate also, and like the leader of the pirates, but somehow didn't tell Caleb about that. Is that the plan? Okay, how was Darum able to walk outside without a spacesuit and still be able to draw breath in order to speak? You know, it's really funny that you said that. I didn't think about that, but you can't speak in space because there's no air. Like sound travels through air. Sound is vibrations on air molecules. So, yeah, he wouldn't have been able to speak. That is a mystery. Good point. That's something I never would have caught. I did catch how they made his skin like start to freeze though, and that was very accurate and very cool to look at. Chaotic Truth says, critics say that the Klingon cadet is weak and awkward, but that's canon. Jadzia told O'Brien Klingons can be cowardly and weak too, so the show is consistent. DJ Magic says, why didn't they not tracker that escape pod when he was when he escaped, like when Bracca escaped? I'm guessing they didn't know he escaped. That's my only guess, is that they didn't have sensors going to know that Bracca escaped because they didn't need to tractor that. They could have just blown it up, right? They don't need to save him. I mean, it'd be nice to save him alive to find out what happened to Caleb's mom. However, he has proven himself to be a great threat. And given the opportunity, he's going to try to blow up the ship again or steal the warp core or something. So like either way, either tractor the pod back or just blow the pod up. But my only guess is they did not have sensors working or something and could not scan to find out that his pod had left, because the pod's not going to it's not going to outrace a starship, right? So like surely if someone looked out the window, they could be like, isn't that an escape pod? You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like it was a pew, it wasn't going off at warp whatever. It was just kind of like trucking along through the space debris. But space debris doesn't matter when you have sensors. It doesn't matter that you can't physically see the pod, like the sensors should be able to see it. So I don't know. Yeah, or beam him back. Right, exactly. Or just like beam him back. We don't even need to see we don't need the pod at all. However, we want him to escape because he's a good bad guy and we want him to come back and be a bad guy again. So we don't want him to like either be blown up or be captured, because how boring would that be if he got captured again? It'd be the same thing. They'd be like, let's arrest you again. Oh, he broke out again. Like, we got to do something different. Might as well complete the job. Because escape pods always have a guaranteed escape button when the plot needs it. That's 100% true. Yes. Chaotic Truth says that critics are upset with Chancellor Ake, but Legacy Trek has always had eccentric characters. People are acting brand new. We had Reginald Barclay, and some critics clearly have amnesia. Yeah, Ake was great. In fact, I'm going to finish up Act 3, and then we're going to talk about the crew, because I freaking loved Ake. I love this crew. I love this crew. They had an exocomp. Okay, let me just jump, because there's some more stuff about the crew. So let me just jump to the end and then talk about the crew. Okay, so now on to Act 3. At this point, Braca has escaped in the escape pod. His entire ship is smithereens, and the Athena, beautiful name. I love that they went to a Greek name. I don't know. It's just fun that they did that. But the Athena is now on its way to San Francisco. It's on its way to Earth. Caleb is super jazzed because his last memory of his mom is her saying, someday, Caleb, we'll go to Earth. And now he's like, we're going to Earth. So the ship is coming in. And now it's time for Ake to give one of her rousing speeches, which is a classic for captains. At least, well, you know what? I don't know how many speeches Kirk gave, but Picard could give a good speech. Okay. I love when he speechifies. I'm always like, tell me more about the measure of a man. So here we have Ake giving a speech, and she's talking to them about whatever, like hopes and trials, and they've made it through their first battle, and they have to choose to be here, just all these things. And they kind of do this pan around where they're looking at all the different cadets' faces and all the bridge crew, and everyone's kind of smiling like, yeah, Ake, yeah, this is great. And they're panning through the crowd of cadets, and they kind of zoom in on Caleb, and Caleb's like, like, oh no, everything she's saying sounds good, but the last thing my mom said was don't trust them, so I don't know. Like, I like what she's saying, but also I don't want to trust it. You know what I mean? I don't think all of that was on his face, but he wasn't actively like, yeah, true. He wasn't doing that. He was just kind of like, interesting. As the ship is coming into land into San Francisco, it kind of comes into orbit around Earth, and then it sheds its unnecessary wings, and then the ship goes down through the atmosphere. And then as it lands, it starts to break off piece by piece by piece. This part of the ship goes here. This part goes here. This part goes here. It was so satisfying. This was the saucer separation that we did not get enough of in TNG. I think the saucer separated, 2 times? Maybe 3? I could have used more. Like, every time I did, it was like, wow. And so when this was just like splitting off and all little pieces were just kind of going to it was like a little Tetris game or something like that as it was all landing. I was just so here for it. It's such a small detail. It doesn't even matter in the plot. It's not even important for the story, but my little nerd heart and my little Trek heart was so delighted with and satisfied with the breakup of this entire ship. Where were the people on this ship? Which part were the people in? Were they in all the parts? I don't know. But I just love seeing it all kind of break apart into little pieces and kind of settle down into San Francisco as like the base for now until their next adventure, I guess. Yeah. When they settled, Caleb and Ake have this heart-to-heart conversation, because Ake is like, okay, everybody wants you to be punished because you sent the message that sicked the pirates on us and almost got us all killed. So they kind of want you to be like expelled and imprisoned or something like that. But on the other hand, you were the one who saved us single-handedly. So it's kind of a mixed bag. So she's like, all right, I'm going to cut you a deal. The second deal of the episode. The first deal was come to the academy. I'll help you find your mom. This is the second deal. She's like, new deal. Because the way she got them out is they had a treaty with the aliens who had imprisoned him. And so Starfleet was able to work out a deal to like get Caleb on like a prisoner release program or something like that. But here she's making a deal where she's kind of reneging on that first one. She's not going to send him back to the prison. She's just like, look, if you don't want to be a part of Starfleet, you can just leave. It's not going to be expelled. You can just leave. You can resign. You can just leave and go live life on your own like you've been doing. Or you can stay with us and not lose your best chance at finding your mom. Now, I feel like this was pretty manipulative because she could have just been like, stay or go, it's up to you. But adding that extra part to be like, you're going to lose your best chance to find your mom if you leave, felt very manipulative, or maybe not very, but it felt slightly manipulative, but also true. This actually is his best chance at finding his mom. He's not going to have a better chance on his own than he will have with the resources of Starfleet. Resources meaning Ake, because she also wants to find mom. So she's not going to spend 24/7 looking for her, but she has actual resources that Caleb does not have access to that could lead them in the right track. So he's like, all right, I'll stay for now. And that's the end of the episode. That's the end of the first episode. Wasn't that wonderful? Like, I just was so happy with where it ended. And I was like, okay, so now I'm curious to see this Ake Caleb tension. Like, how is this relationship going to resolve? Are they going to get to a place where they really trust each other? Or are there going to continue to be things that cause them to mistrust each other? Because I think that's more interesting, actually, of a story. Okay, I'm going to check the chat, and then we're just going to get into we're going to talk about the crew and then some predictions, because the crew is delightful. So, Chaotic Truth says, I've argued with dudes who complain about women being the female leads, but then they say they love Voyager because they were thirsting over Seven of Nine so hard. Yeah, I I've also noticed that there was a lot of complaining, like a lot of the complaining that's happening about New Trek and stuff. There was a lot of complaining about DS9 because it was a black lead. And it was like, what? That could never happen in Star Trek. And then there was a lot of complaining about Voyager because there was a female lead. And it was like, what? That could never happen in Star Trek. So it's just like the more things change, the more they stay the same, you know? Genesis gave him a neck thing for his vocal cords. Oh, did she? Oh, I totally missed that. Sela says Janeway is my favorite captain. Chaotic Truth says she's one of my top 5. You're so funny. I think so. DJ Magic says I think Caleb's mom was involved with the pirates all along. Okay, thank you. You're clarifying from before. Thank you. Okay, I think Caleb's mom was involved with the pirates all along, and Caleb picked up some things and were taught some things prior to his mom being arrested. And then when he escaped, he went back to them. I understand. Okay, Sela says that Kirk could speechify with the best of them. Okay, good to know. I haven't seen enough TOS to hear any of his speeches. I don't think. Because I'm still in season 1, so, or I maybe just don't remember off the top of my head. DJ Magic says, I may be totally wrong, but that's the vibe I get. And it plays to the 90210-ish of keeping secrets, which it looks like it's all about that all the kids have secrets. I like that. Risk is our business. In every revolution, there is one man with a vision. Chaotic Truth says, critics say the tech doesn't add up 700 years after DS9, but the burn reset everything. Economies collapsed, research died, and the galaxy went through 100 years of dark ages. This is rebuilding. I feel like the tech was fine. Like, I was happy with all of it. I didn't feel like it wasn't enough tech or future. How could you say it's not future enough? Based on what? Like, I have no problem with that. Okay, let's talk about the crew. Let me know in the chat who your favorite crew member is. I would love to know. I know a lot of people said Thok was their favorite. I would love to know. So we have Lieutenant Thok, who is the first officer and also the cadet master. So she's like the boss of the kids, I guess. And she's super tough. And when they first come on board, Caleb says something like she's walking with Ake and briefing her on, the status of the ship. And Caleb says some smart aleck comment. And Thok turns around and is like, get on the ground and give me push-ups or whatever. And he's like, what? And she's like, do it right now. And she's really scary and imposing. And he's like, okay. And he starts doing push-ups. And she's like, put a bag on his back. Do more push-ups. And he's like, I don't know what's going on. And then she eventually lets him get up. And he's like scared to death. And Ake's like, I think this is going to work out great for everyone, which is just like such a funny moment. So we see that Thok is going to be kind of the tough character and also like the grumpy character, but also very efficient and very, very good. So like very good at her job. So I wonder if she's going to be Spock-like in her first officer roles, if she's going to be very like the voice of reason, or if she's going to be more Worf-like and just be like, fire, like fight them. We need to go to war. Because I think that would also be pretty interesting. I mean, I don't know how it would play out in a show about the cadets learning what Starfleet's about, but I'm sure they could find a way. I think that'd be fun. We've got Chancellor Ake, who is a Lanthanite. So she is long-lived like Pelia from Strange New Worlds. I don't know how long Lanthanites live. Do we know how long Lanthanites live if they die a natural death? I don't know, but they're supposed to live like a long time, like Guinan long, like a long, long, long time. And her whole thing is she wants redemption. She wants to rebuild Starfleet in the image that she originally joined for hundreds of years ago. And she wants to redeem two things, really, like the fact that she did not get to, that if she had more time with her son, she would have listened more. Or looking back, like she regrets that she didn't really listen. So there's a chance for her to do this with Caleb and a chance for her to do this with all the cadets. And the second redemption is specifically with Caleb and trying to reunite their family if Caleb's mom is alive and well. And I really hope she is. I think I'd be super disappointed if they're like, oh yeah, she died 5 years ago. Like, that would be such a letdown. I feel like she has to be alive and come back. They did that on Discovery with Michael Burnham's mom. Both her parents died, some kind of way. But then mom came back. And then it was so disappointing because mom came back. She was alive and well, but she was like changed because now she's in this religious order of warrior nuns. And she just like she wasn't the same person and she didn't really want to have a relationship with Michael. And I just found it really heartbreaking. Of all these years of grieving, like my mom is gone, then my mom is back, but she's not my mom and she doesn't really love me the same way is how I felt. And that was really a bummer. So I feel like we're going to have something similar with this, that Caleb's mom hopefully will still be alive, but somehow not the mom he remembers and not as like So I guess I'm getting a little into the predictions. Maybe I'll mix the predictions in with the crew. But that's kind of my concern, is that when they find the mom, she will either be very standoffish, like Michael Burnham's mom, or maybe she will be an evil pirate queen, and then Caleb will have to reorient everything he thought about her, and now she'll be like, join me and screw Starfleet and turn on all your friends and help me take the ship, and all this stuff, and then it'll be like testing his loyalties. I think that'd be interesting, but also sad. I just don't want her to be dead. I would rather have her be a bad guy. Like, I'd rather have her come back and be even more evil than Braca, because that would be like just more satisfying, I think, to me, than if she was either dead or was just like, I've been held prisoner this whole time, I'm so glad you saved me, like super weak, or something like that. But whatever they do is fine. My question is, do you think that they're going to find the mom by the end of this season, or do you think that's going to be like something we don't get resolution on until season 7, if it makes it 7 seasons? That's my question for you. Okay, next we have Caleb. Actually, one more thing about Ake. The fact that she was reading that physical book, like we said earlier, just captain after my own heart, like curled up in the captain's chair just reading a book, is just like me all day, every day. I love that. We have Caleb, who is a genius at solving both technical problems and people problems a little bit, right? Because he was able to play Ake to steal her comm badge. As a 6-year-old, he knew how to play a grown-up. That's high-level skills. Also, the way he was programming whatever inside the ship to mess up with the programmable matter around the outside of the ship shows that he knows like tech stuff and engineering. He's just like very gifted at all these things that he has not had formal training in, so he can only go further. He's also got a huge chip on his shoulder. He doesn't trust anybody, understandably so. Everyone in his life has been extremely untrustworthy, so that totally tracks. And now he gets to learn what it's like to make friends. And I think we're going to do this. Is he Starfleet? Is he not, for a while? I mean, maybe they resolve this in episode 2, but I think that's going to go on for a while. And then at some point he'll be like, I am Starfleet. And then something will come in to disrupt that. Like maybe mom shows up and is like, turn on Starfleet, or you're not really my son. Something like that. He does not feel like he belongs, which is perfect, because that's like the all of us, we're the outsiders looking at Starfleet Academy. I love that. We have Genesis, who is a snarky and sassy love interest who can make friends easily. She is the one who first befriends poor Sam, who's like trying to make friends and trying to talk to people, and everyone's just like ignoring her and walking past her. And Genesis is the one who's like, hey, let's chat. And she's like, can we be friends? And Genesis is like, okay, sure. She's the one who catches Caleb making his secret message. She's the one who breaks up the fight between Caleb and Darum. And she seems like an all-around, just like, jovial type snarky person. She's kind of like a funnier Ensign Rowe. So that'll be interesting. Then we have Jaden, who is this timid, stammering Klingon, which is interesting because we already have the prototypical Klingon in Thok, even though she's part Jem'Hadar. We already have that, like, the warrior of the warrior of the warrior in her. So it's nice to have a contrast of someone who's a Klingon who's not exactly like that. And he kind of reminds me of Alexander. Alexander's not timid at all, but he is just like not super Klingon. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's just, when we see Alexander come back in Deep Space Nine, we're like, oh, buddy. Like, he just does not know his butt from his elbow. He's not the most Klingon of Klingons. Again, understandably so, because in his upbringing, like, that was not a thing he had to try to do. However, it looks like, it seems like, from what I know so far about Jaden, that he probably was raised with a bunch of Klingons. He's just been different from them. And he's very shy and subtle and withdrawn. And so part of his arc, I'm assuming, will be getting more courage and more confidence. He's kind of like the Tilly of the show, or maybe he's more like the Adira of the show, because Adira had very little confidence in Discovery. Sam is more like the Tilly in the sense of like the bubbly, happy character. Sam is a photonic, I believe, and let me know if I'm wrong in the chat, but I believe she left her colony of photonics to, I think she's the first one to leave her colony, I think. And so she's on the ship and she's like, trying to meet organics and see what this is like. And so she is so amped. She's been programmed to be an angsty, whatever age she's supposed to be, 17-year-old. And so she's just like, ooh, this is going to be great. She meets the doctor on the first day during the fun and games part. And she's just like, oh my gosh, it's the EMH. She's like so excited about the doctor. And he's just trying to get people to sign up for the opera club. And as they're chatting, she lets out that she's a hologram. And he's like, oh, great. And starts packing up all his stuff and like trying to get out of there. And Sam's like, well, now that you're my new mentor, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, whoa, I am not your mentor, but also sign up for the opera club. Like, I don't know, just that whole interaction was really fun. I love that she's so chipper and excited and happy and just wants to meet people. And she told him, like, I'm feeling really anxious and all these things. And and like I was programmed to be this, but I don't understand. Like, I think my program's wrong. And for the doctor to be like, your program's fine. You were programmed to be this age. This is what being this age feels like. The program's fine. And I don't know. I'm excited. I agree with, I think it was Chaotic Truth who said this, or whoever said this earlier about Sam. My hope for Sam is that she does have an evolution like Data or like the doctor, where she becomes different as time goes on. Right now, she's really naive and bubbly and open. And I do hope she keeps that bubbliness, but also gets that more serious edge that comes from going through real life, you know, from going through tough things, from losing friends. Not that I want anybody on the show to die, but you know what I mean? Like, that comes from actually, you know, it reminds me of Nog. Nog was like, I'm going to be the first ring in Starfleet. And he was like, Starfleet cadet, Starfleet cadet. And then when he got shot and his leg got removed, he was like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like, this is real. War is real. This is awful. Do I still want this? Do I even want to be in Starfleet? I didn't realize it was going to be like this. And then he had to kind of like mature and grow up and make a decision. Do I still want this or not? And he was like, yeah, I still want this. But from this mindset of, I know what I'm getting myself into, as opposed to just this naive excitement. So while I do not want Sam to lose a holographic leg, I would love to see her character grow and develop over time as well, to be more worldly and more maybe somber and serious, but still with lots of moments of just being playful and naive and happy, because I love the joy she brings to the show. And I think it was probably her. Well, no, it was multiple things in the trailer that made me go like, oh, I don't know. This looks like 90210 in space. But then to see like the way that her bubbliness is very isolated. It's not like every single character is like skipping through the daisies. It's Sam. It's just Sam. And she's legitimately excited to be in this whole new environment. And it's such a pleasure to watch. And then we have Darum, who is the Keonian, who's apparently a shapeshifter, because he does that. And it's awesome. I don't know anything else about his character. Maybe we'll find out more in the next episode, but he's a new species to Trek, which yes, let's bring new species. I love the hybrid idea too. I love the new hybrids. So I'm sure we will get more information about him and his backstory and his family. And he's the first Keonian in Starfleet. So lots and lots to learn there. He starts off as kind of this like jock bully. He's bullying Jaden for no reason. And that's when Caleb steps in and is just like, oh, you need me to teach you a lesson? And you're like, okay, let's see what's going to happen here. So they're kind of frenemies, but they're clearly in the same group. So I think that'll be interesting to see these two characters who can't stand each other, but are forced to be in the same group. It's like Harry Potter and Malfoy. You know what I mean? We get the villain just like right there in the class next to them. I think that'll be fun. Also, sassy girl Genesis is like cool with everybody, including both of these knuckleheads. So she'll be like the bridge. Okay, I'm going to check the chat, and then I have a few predictions, and then we will be donezo. I cannot believe I'm still talking, but I really love this episode. Let's see. Okay, scrolling back. So I said, who is your favorite character? And Wingrace said immediately Sam. It is Sam. Dustin says Sam for cadet and Ake for instructor. But Reno, once we get to Reno. Does Ake teach, though, as the chancellor? Does she actually teach something? Like, does she have a class? Couchu says, to be honest, 1,000 years is a very long time. The tech should be far greater than what we're seeing, just my opinion. See, I don't know how we could compare that to anything, though. Like, how could we look at tech, at this, like, you know, made-up tech in the show and be like, oh, that tech is only 500 years advanced. It's not 1,000 years advanced. What is this based on? Like, where's our rubric? Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't look at the machine that they walk through that changes their outfits. I can't look at that and be like, well, that looks like it's only been 800 years of evolution, not 1,000 years of evolution. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't make that decision, especially since tech can evolve so rapidly. It's just really hard for me to say that it doesn't feel futuristic enough. I was happy with all the tech. I was happy with it. Wingrace agrees that Reno was the best for episode 2. Sela says the crew really gelled. I feel like I know this crew better than in one episode than all of Discovery. I feel like I know this crew better than all of Strange New Worlds. That's how I feel. I feel like we really got to, in this one episode, we really got to see kind of like their quirkiness come out a little bit more. Not the Kulat Mulat. Is that wasn't it the Kuat Mulat or something like that? I don't know. I don't remember how to say it. At least 5,000 years. PS2 Chipper says a good mom won't abandon her child. Yeah, but she was in prison. So what happened? She got out 5 years ago. What happened? Why couldn't she find Caleb? Was she looking for Caleb? Did she not want Caleb to get into whatever shenanigans she's in? Was she trying to protect him? What if, you know, Braca is Caleb's dad or something? I don't know. You know, like what if she was trying to protect him from some influence that was going to take him and raise him, or who knows what? I don't know. So many questions. Chaotic Truth would love to see a few Q episodes. Question, do we think we're getting the Q in this show? We do not have, we had a mention of the Q in Strange New Worlds. They went to the Q's homeworld or something. It was implied. And we have the episode where we see, I believe, Q Jr., but they don't explicitly say it, okay? So do we think we're going to get the Q in this show? I don't know. Chaotic Truth says a few time travel episodes to the 2370s would be awesome. Patty says, especially when she said, don't trust them. It makes sense that she would come back to take revenge. Kurtzman could do so much with this series. Maybe Nuss told her that he's dead. He has been deleting his secret messages to her. Ooh, so maybe Braca told Mom that Caleb is dead. And then Braca's been deleting all of Caleb's secret messages to her. And that's why he was trying so hard to get him here. Ooh, interesting. Genesis is Forbidden Planet. What do you mean by that? Wasn't Worf a pacifist in Picard? Worf was a warrior monk. So he was still down to fight, but he was also very like zen about it. He would meditate before decapitations. Jaden is the Klingon Bobby Hill. You know what I just thought of when Grace? I thought of when Bobby's like, that's my purse. I don't know you. That's so funny. So a bird watching Klingon is not such a stretch. Oh yeah, he did say he watches birds. I mean, lots of people do. Yeah, he was like, it's for watching birds. I was like, okay. And then later on, Genesis was like, oh, it was nice what you did to Caleb for your friend, Jaden. And Caleb was all like, he's not my, well, actually, I guess I do have a friend, which I thought was really sweet. Oh my gosh. Okay, Chaotic Truth, I make no promises. I still haven't even watched the second episode, dude. Like, I barely had time to watch the first one. But man, did I love it. So I would be down. I just don't want to make any promises that I can't keep and then have you all be disappointed. Chaotic Truth says, people also forget the Klingon kid wants to be a doctor, so he's probably not a super aggressive Klingon, more intellectual like the Klingon lawyer in Rules of Engagement. And Sela agrees. I think this is what Sela's agreeing with. Yeah, I forgot the part that he wants to be a doctor. You know what? It was interesting because in Rules of Engagement, when there was like the Klingon lawyer, it's like, who said this? I think it was Wingrace who was like, but it was about the Ferengi. It was like, yeah, the Ferengi also have like lawyers and doctors and scientists and things like that. So why are we always seeing this side of them where they're always like, oh, it's about money, it's about profit, we just need profit. And we see Quark running a bar, and we see that that Rom is super good with engineering, but he's like, oh, I can't do that because there's no profit in it. But to Wingrace's point, he's like, but they have starships, so clearly they have Ferengi engineers. You know, that like there's things in their infrastructure that they must have, even if their core value is monetary gain. They still need to have other types of people. You know, people who aren't just like money, 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 but people who are like science, 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 or medicine, 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 or education, education, or something, you know, like all the things to make a society work. So that's a really good point, that we also should have different kinds of Klingons, because why not? DJ Maddox says, exactly. That would be almost the perfect catalyst to turn someone to your side, a la Manchurian Candidate. He puts in power, but he pulls her strings. Interesting. Yep. True. Chaotic Truth says Sam is definitely his favorite character as well. Somebody just put a really weird insult in the chat, so I'm just gonna remove that. When you're supposed to make a toy, but you want to be a dentist. When you're supposed to make toys and you want to be a dentist, is that what you're saying, Randall? By the way, I'm rooting for Sam and the Betazoid brother. He's got a bit of Jack Ransom in him. I don't know who that is, but I'm rooting for Sam and anyone because I just love Sam. Sam is just like a delight, a freaking delight. Yeah, but who flies the ship? Doesn't the ship fly itself at this point? Because our ships fly themselves. So come on. Sam is my favorite character. She's going to be a fan favorite on the level of Worf, 7 of 9, and Q. I really hope that Sam's a favorite. But Sam reminds me a lot of Tilly. And Tilly I just loved so much in season 1 of Discovery because she was like this. She was just bubbly and friendly and nice and sweet. And I think people love-hate her. I think some people like me are like, oh, I love Tilly. And some people are like, I freaking hate Tilly. So I feel like the same thing might happen with Sam because she's so bubbly and like, because she's so happy. And there was that scene where Thok is like, bleeding out and Jaden is trying to like seal the wound. And Sam is just like, great job. Make sure you don't pierce her heart and kill her, and then Thok grabs Sam and is just like, if I only have moments to live, I need you to turn down the enthusiasm, right? So I feel like there may be people who feel like that about Sam, who are just like, I need you to turn down the enthusiasm. But also, like, Thok is super grumpy. Does she need to turn down the grumpy? No, this is what makes the characters interesting. This is what makes them different. So I'm not sure. I think Sam will be like, might be a love-hate character where people are either like, oh my gosh, I love Sam. And some people are going to be like, oh my God, I hate Sam. It's interesting. No one has said Darum yet. No one has said Jaden. And that is totally fine. You don't have to, but it's just interesting. A lot of people are saying Sam. Kovic said the Q haven't been seen in hundreds of years. Ooh, what happened to them? I want to know. Okay, so Chaos Truth says that second episode's incredible. That's a relief because I kind of thought, what if it's bad? But I'm still watching it. Guess what? I'm still watching it. I'm watching it. Doesn't matter. I'm watching it. Like, I'm in. The pilot was phenomenal. Like, these new Trek shows, whether you like them or not, the pilots kill. Like, the pilots crush compared to the pilots of the original Star Treks. Like, because I think the expectation is so much higher. Oh, Genesis is Forbidden Planet, said by Alien when McCoy wants to go there in Star Trek 3. Oh, okay. Thank you for spelling that out. Worf's grandfather was a lawyer. I totally forgot about that. Exactly. There was the one Ferengi scientist. What was his name? Wasn't his name like Braga? Was that it? Or something like that? Yeah, because he was the one who made the heat shield that protected them from the star's corona or whatever that the other guy tried to steal. Klingon chef on DS9 is my favorite. Oh yeah, the Klingon chef who sings, like he sings opera while he like walks around the restaurant serenading people with his little whatever the instrument is he's carrying. PS2 Chipper says, I think the Klingons that hype up the warriors are warriors themselves, right? Which Thok, you would like Thok if you like Klingons, PS2 Chipper, because she is very Klingon. When Grace giving some love to Randall for that shout out. Oh yeah, Rock Talk. Exactly, Rock Talk. Rock Talk in Prodigy is also, she's not Sam. Sam is like bubbly and like just like so naive and like brand new. Rock Talk is pretty young and pretty naive too and pretty sweet. But not very, she's not as big of a personality. However, I would agree. Rock Talk would fall in this category where people are either like, oh my gosh, I love her. Or they're like, oh my gosh, I hate her. Stop talking. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's that kind of character where there is a clear line as opposed to a character like Dal on Prodigy or a character like Caleb, who obviously we're supposed to like because he's the main protagonist. Ake we're also supposed to like because she's like the main protagonist too next to Caleb. They're more like even keeled in their personalities so that people can kind of see themselves. All different kinds of people can see themselves in Ake or Caleb or both. But Sam is like very dramatically different and Jaden is different and Darum is different and Genesis is different. Very snarky, very sassy. Like they're trying to differentiate so that way people can have favorites, which I love, right? Dustin says, I don't agree about modern first episodes. This one was great, but I didn't find any of the others better than fine. I am not saying that their first episodes are the best episodes in their run. I'm saying their first episodes are better than the first episodes of Old Trek. And to be fair, maybe that's not even a good comparison because I actually really like the pilot of Voyager. I think that was really good. I don't like the pilot of TNG. I did when I watched it live airing, but now looking back, I'm like, what is this? What is this? I did like the pilot of TOS, like very much. I very much like The Cage, and I very much like Man Trap. So maybe that statement is inaccurate. Maybe to be fair, all the pilots are good enough to get the show greenlit, but I feel like, and maybe this is wrong, but I feel like when I look back on the show, I'm going to still love this episode, which I didn't for the pilot of TNG, right? Like I loved it at the time, didn't love it in retrospect, like watching it as an adult. But I think watching this later on, I'm still going to love it just as much. Even if I find more holes or whatever, I'm still going to be like, explosions. Oh my gosh, the tension between these two characters. Like, yeah, TNG's pilot was, I'm sure it was great at the time. And I remember watching it as a kid and being like, ooh, just watching it as an adult, I'm like, no, thanks. Okay, let's see. Sela says, I like that they acknowledge that the Doctor worked with a Prodigy crew. I did not hear that. Did they say that in episode 2? Actually, don't tell me. I'll just see it when I watch episode 2. Yeah, DS9's was great. Voyager's was good. Enterprise was great. TOS was good. I have not seen Enterprise's pilot, so I like DS9's pilot. It had some layers to it, but yeah, I liked it. I need to watch it again. I had to watch it in parts, so I need to watch it again. You know what it is? It's the 2-hour pilots like that are killing me, which is why I'm glad this show just let 2 episodes drop instead of giving me a 2-hour pilot, because it was like an hour and some change just for the first episode. So anyways, Wingrave says DS9, then Enterprise, and then this might be my top 3, even though I love Voyager for what it is. Dustin says this is easily the best first episode of any new Trek though so far. Oh, you know what? I actually loved the first episode of Prodigy. I was like, oh my gosh. And I don't remember the second episode was great because it was like it ended on a cliffhanger and they had to like close the loop. But I think episode 3 it was like the intensity went way down because they were like trapped on a world that was where they were like tripping and didn't know what was real, and it was interesting, but it just wasn't the same level of like grip that pilot had. But the pilot was really good. Thank you so much, PS2 Chipper. Chaotic Truth says, not all Klingons are combat warriors. To them, everything's a battlefield, even court and dinner talk. And a warrior can be the best storyteller, like in Voyager's Prophecy. Okay, that is it. Oh, wait, I didn't do my predictions. Okay, predictions. So Chaotic Truth says, I hated Prodigy only because it's a cartoon, and at my age, I feel silly watching a toon. Yeah, so I was nervous about it too because I was like, oh, it's for kids. But honestly, it was so great. Like, season 2 of it was just everything I could want in a Star Trek show. But I did have to get through season 1. Season 1 picked up, but there was parts where I just felt angsty and young and uncomfortable. Especially as a teacher, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's like being back at work. But by the end of it, it really picked up. And then season 2, I have no complaints. Like, from beginning to end, I have no complaints. It was so satisfying. I didn't like... What? You didn't like the first 2 episodes of Prodigy? What? Wow. That is... The last thing is predictions / questions about what's coming up next. We already talked about a bunch of them throughout this live stream, but just a couple that I wrote down. Will Braca make it past season 1? This is my question for you as a question and prediction. Will Braca make... Obviously, Braca's the big bad. And what they're going to do, my assumption, is what they've been doing for New Trek, where they have kind of like a monster of the week. So each episode is standalone, but then they'll have some kind of arc, some big bad, some big mystery they're trying to solve throughout the one season. Then sometimes there might be mysteries sprinkled throughout that take several seasons to solve, and they can save those until the end, the big reveal in season 7 or whenever the final season of the show is. So Braca is obviously going to be the big bad of season 1. His story probably needs to end with him in a fiery explosion. I think imprisonment just is not going to be a satisfying ending for his character at this point because we've established he can break out of prison, right? But when that fireball happens, it has to be satisfying. So it's either got to be at the hands of Caleb or at the hands of Caleb's mom, if she's a bad guy, a good guy, a kidnapped victim, whatever. I feel like it wouldn't even be good if it was at Ake's hands. Like, I think it needs to be Caleb or Caleb's mom who takes out Braca. But I also feel like Braca needs to last at least through the end of the season. And I really like his wacky character. Like, I think he's a fun bad guy. And I want to see the layers of him. And I want to see how clever he can be. I kind of want him to be like Moriarty, and just be like really cunning, but also really crazy. And just like, or kind of like the Joker, right? Where you're just like, you don't know what he's going to do next. And you're like, I can't believe he did that. So I think we're going to have him to the end of the season. I don't know if he's going to last past that, because we don't want bad guys that just linger for seasons and seasons unless they disappear for a while through, I don't know, a wormhole, a time rift, something, and they come back like Seska, right? Who was like gone, buried, and then came back through the hologram, and you're like, oh my gosh, Seska's back to mess with the crew. Or like Selah, who was Tasha Yar's half Romulan daughter, who like came back. If we have these like, somehow the character is gone and then comes back, like that's fine. But we can't just have him out there running about for seasons and seasons. Like, That's crazy. So I think he's going to make it to the end of season 1. I don't know if he'll make it past season 1. I wouldn't be mad if he made it past season 1. I don't think I would want him to last till season 7 at this point, unless somehow there's this dramatic character change and he ends up being the good guy all along or something. I don't know. Okay. Thank you, Chaotic Truth. Thank you for the Cash App, for the super chat. The time fracture episode of Prodigy is where it all changes. So freaking good. Dustin also didn't like the first episodes of Prodigy, even though it's easily the best new Trek show overall. I freaking loved it. Loved everything about it. Yes, Wesley coming back. Oh yeah, Wesley could show up at the Academy. Wesley could show up anywhere because he's a traveler. Yes, so maybe we'll see Wesley in Academy. That's a good prediction. I feel like we should. We should see him at least once. I feel like we should see Wesley in every show. Even if he's just like in the back, like chilling, you know, like it would make sense to me. He doesn't have to be the main character at all. So, thoughts on Braca? What do you think? Is he going to make it past season 1? Second thing, question prediction. Will Caleb find his mom at the end of season 1? Or is that going to be something that they save until the end of season 7? I feel like because it's the main question that Caleb is asking, I feel like it has to be dragged out a lot longer than season 1. I feel like at the end of season 1, he needs to find out what happened to her, and that sets him on a new trajectory. Like, even if he finds out she's like the evil pirate queen, now he like knows where she is but can't get to her. Or now he's met her but she's on some far off planet, or now she's at war with Starfleet and they're hunting her down to kill her, or something like that. Like, it has to stretch out longer. It cannot be contained in such a small bite, because then there's no impetus for him to continue to struggle through Starfleet for future seasons. Also, now that I think about it, if Academy is supposed to be like college, it's only 4 years long, right? So are they slating the show to be 4 years long and then all the cadets graduate? Or are we going to see them graduate and go off to like lead their own ships? Because then we can't, if we break up the team, then it's not the same show. So that's just something I just thought about. Will they even be able to have 7 seasons of this show with these constraints? And if so, would they bring in new crew over time, like new cadets, and slowly replace the crew that we know and love, and therefore keep the show going? That's something I haven't seen before. I don't know how successful that would be, but it'd be interesting. So that's the second question. Will Caleb find his mom at the end of season 1? My prediction is no. Not the mom he remembers. I'll put it that way. Third thing. Will Sam's character get to evolve like the Doctor, or will she remain one note? My prediction is yes, she will evolve, because if she doesn't, what a bummer, you know? And then my last question is, how many love triangles will happen on the show? Now, this was one of the things that made me nervous watching the trailer, because I was like, oh, it's just going to be people hooking up and like, I don't know, which that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. But that's just not the kind of show I was like excited for. I was excited for Section 31. So that's like what I wanted to see. Just like action and intrigue. I didn't want to see kind of this style of show. However, thinking about it and also having watched the first episode, it's fine, because love triangles are just so great for conflict and for drama, which is what makes shows good, which is why almost every good show ever has at least one love triangle, sometimes more, because that tension is what makes it interesting. It also gives me a lot of anxiety, though, which is why I'm like, oh, I hope it's not too many love triangles, because it really makes me anxious. What the will he, won't he, will they, won't they, like that really makes me legitimately anxious. I'm like, will they get together? Will they not? For some reason, I can't just be like, just enjoy it and see what happens. I'm like, I mean, you should have seen me 7 seasons of TNG. And I was like, when are Beverly and Picard going to get together? And then they have the nerve in the last episode to be like, oh yeah, they got divorced. Like, what? They just skipped the whole, we never got to see the relationship part. I'm so mad. So that's the last, it's not really a question, or it's a prediction that we will have love triangles, because it's a perfect point of conflict and it makes shows interesting. And I'm nervous about how many we will have because of the anxiety that it gives me. So I hope we only have one. We only have one triangle, and the triangle can kind of like do-si-do around. I'm fine with that. But I hope we don't have more than that, because it's just going to be like too much for my heart to bear if we have to keep doing all of this. Literally, like, it's the same thing with Will and Deanna in TNG. It was just like, are they ever going to be together? And by the time we got to season 7, I was like, man, I don't care. I don't even care anymore. I don't even care what y'all do, because it's just been too much like drama, and it just stressed me out. Donna Summers graduates. All right, let's see. We're gonna check the chat, and then I think we are done for the day. Any more predictions or questions? Go ahead and drop them. Good night, PS2 Chipper, if you've already left. Thank you again, Chaotic Truth, for the Cash App, for the super chat. A redemption arc. Exactly. A redemption arc could be interesting for, I don't know what you were talking about here, Win Grace, but a redemption arc could be interesting for Braca. That like might make him a character that needs to stay around for longer. Wesley and Cora, she's got to show back up at some point. Cora, that was her name, right? Cora? Corey? Corey? Corey. Corey. That was it. Corey Sung. I don't know if we're gonna see her again. I feel like they were trying to just like kind of wrap that up and be done with her as a character. That was the feeling I got from that scene when, you know, Wesley comes and is like, "You're a traveler too." Wee. I got the sense that Corey was just like done. But if we saw her again, like as a cadet, she's pretending to be a cadet, but she's really spying on them for traveler business. That'd be dope. I would love that. Randall says, I saw season 2 on Netflix of Prodigy. The themes pull back a little for kids, but it's good. Yeah, it's definitely something for kids, but I think adults can also appreciate it. Is your prediction is that Wesley brings Corey Sung to the Academy in season 2? I love it. I love it. I love it. And when Grace and Dustin have jinxed each other. Chaotic Truth says the Duras sisters had a real enemy arc antagonist in the episode and then a movie, then DS9, and they were still memorable. Yes, that is true. But the Duras sisters were not the Duras sisters were absolutely enemies. The Duras family were enemies, right? Because it was the Duras brother who was trying to like say that Worf's dad was the traitor, but it was really the Duras's dad. And then the sisters came in with like their nephew. And then the sisters came in just being the sisters. So their role kind of changed over time. But yeah, the Ross family was like a big bad for Worf specifically. But in this case, the way Braca is an enemy for Caleb is more like the way the Borg are an enemy for Picard because of Locutus. It's more like it's bigger than just like, oh man, you like mess with me from time to time. So I feel like it's harder for him to just like keep showing up for a really long time without being dealt with at some point. Because the Ross sisters, what are we going to do about them? Like they can go on and go about their business. They're, you know, they weren't causing as much trouble as they were trying to cause. Yes, I'll buy you some cake. Let's go. Chaotic Truth says Sam's character will definitely evolve. And honestly, she's going to anchor the show. So many triangles and quadrangles. Dot bot drama. Drama, so much drama. Sam will evolve, but I'm wondering if her species is less benevolent than it seems. I'm thinking of the Kalon from Orville, or that creepy holodeck character from, what's it called? From Revulsion on Voyager. If it's just like some holograms that went rogue, or maybe these are the holograms from what's that episode from Voyager from I'm blanking on the episode. Okay, there was the episode where the Hirogen were given the holodeck technology in the Killing Game Part 2, so that way they would stop hunting people and they could hunt the holograms. But then the holograms rebelled and they escaped, and then they start slaughtering the Hirogen, and then they left, and then they like went to make their own colony. What if these are the like descendants of those holograms? Can't believe I'm blanking on that name. I talk about that episode all the time. But what if that's where they come from? Or there was that episode of Voyager called The Bride of Chaotica, where we learned about the photonic beings who lived like on some other rift of space-time or whatever that the Doctor met when the Doctor was pretending to be the president of Earth. What if they're those type of photonic beings and somehow they're in our galaxy or, you know, time and space or whatever? Hopefully we get more backstory on Sam's colony, because maybe we can visit Sam's colony. Ooh, wouldn't that be a fun episode? It's all photonics and they can like just like pass through walls and stuff, and I don't know, it'd be cool. It'd be like visiting Odo's planet, but less of a bummer. Gates McFadden is so hot. Agreed. So beautiful. Love trapezoids for sure. Love between exocomps and Cations. I hope that's a joke. Hi from Belfast, Ireland. I won't ask what the topic is. Hello. The topic is the first episode of Star Trek Academy and how awesome it was. Excited to see more of the Doctor. Same. DJ Magic says, I'm giving the show a wide berth because I'm giving this show a wide berth because this is the premise of the show we wanted back when TNG was on its first run. Typical that I joined at the end. Hey, just glad you joined it all. And because this is a live stream on YouTube, you can actually rewind right now while I'm talking all the way to the beginning and watch the whole thing, like right now. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Thank you. Flesh and Blood. That's the name of the episode where the holograms take revenge and start slaughtering Hirogen and escape to freedom. The episode Flesh and Blood. So good. Such a good episode. I think that's a two-parter also, but I don't totally remember. Really great episode. Okay, I'm done. I have been talking for my whole life about this episode. So good. And I don't even know, like, objectively how good it is, but I just know it is so much better than my expectations were. That alone makes it feel like an exceptional experience. I'm excited to watch episode 2 because apparently it gets better. And I'm also really curious about the season finale because finales usually have to be big and splashy. So that when you come back, you know, so the next season. So it's only 10 episodes. We've already got 2 down. One more is coming out tonight, depending on where you are in the world, or tomorrow for some of us at the time of this recording. So, I mean, we're a third of the way through already. The show just started and it's already a third of the way through. So we've run through it, but I don't know. I'm just hoping it gets really great reviews. I'm avoiding all the people who are being super negative about it and not wanting to watch it because I don't want that to bring down my experience. You know? So I will just let you know if you are thinking about watching the show, definitely give the first episode a try. Watch the whole thing all the way through. If at the end you're like, this isn't my cup of tea, then don't watch it. Watch something else. Go back and watch one of your favorite shows and just enjoy that. There's so much Star Trek around for all of us. Like there is a show for literally everyone. There's a show for kids. There's a show for everyone. There's a show for guys who just want to see girls in miniskirts. There's a whole show for that. There's a show that's lots of action. There's a show that's more drama. There's something for everyone here. And so I'm hoping that all the people who hate New Trek are not watching right now. But if you are, you know, you don't have to love New Trek. You don't have to watch New Trek. You can watch the old stuff. But I would love to invite you to be happy that we are getting new people into the fandom. Or is that this show is going to bring new people into the Trek universe. And that is only a good thing. I am so excited to talk Star Trek, really everyone. So the fact that this is going to bring in more people to just geek out about Trek, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Okay, I am going to just like read the chat one last time and then we'll be done. Yeah, Chaotic Truth says it's definitely a sleeper series up there amongst the legacy series, to be honest. Thank you so much, Dustin. Kapla. It seems like most people who actually watched it thought it was better than they thought it would be. I know for sure it was better than I thought it would be, even if they still don't like it. Okay, aside from the normal hate, of course. Oh, look at that. The first episode is free on YouTube. I didn't know that. What's the miniskirt show? Asking for a friend. It's TOS. I was going to make a joke on top of your joke, but some people might really want to know. It's called the original series. Lots and lots of miniskirts and other scantily clad women. Sometimes the women are even green. So, you know, mixing it up. Thank you so much for those of you who joined live. Thank you so much for those watching on the replay. And I will see you next time. Bye.